Just to say that before AI was a buzzword and it was used in some areas, but we didn't really know where and how. I'm talking years ago, but nowadays, if we look at this picture here, which you obviously cannot read, it shows that it's gone from trend to core business. So in every business, infrastructure, analytics, and so on like this, it is being used across the board, across all industries. And it's here, I have to say, it's here to stay. And and then because of why, we are looking at the trends there, we're looking at every single company and every business is starting to adopt AI. And then when we think about pharmacovigilance, the question we ask is why now? Why are we looking at using AI? Why have we been looking at use AI for the past, I don't know, five, even some companies maybe longer than that years. So I think the main reason and is because of the increase of the volume of data. So every year the volume of data goes up and up and up, and it's about 20% year on year. And it becomes very difficult for companies to manage that high volume of cases. And cases, when I say cases, it could be data information coming from lots of different sources. And as you know, Biologit is mainly focusing at the moment on literature monitoring. So when we look at the table there, the little table, we show that AI enable literature review is, this is from Transcelerate from 2022. It's 15% that is in use, underway 2%, pilot 5%, and under consideration 24%. So there's still a large room here for companies to start developing literature monitoring using AI because only 15% of companies have started using it. But there's a lot of companies that are considering it. To make, as you know, in pharmacovigilance, we're highly driven by regulation, legislations, and so on, guidances. And we started seeing some regulation coming on board to help us to implement and to build software as well, because it's not only implementing, but the companies that are building software, they need to be in line with the regulations. So there is a lot of there's been, and we will talk a little bit about that on the FDA, MHRA, and others that have issued guidance. And in addition to the human medicines, we also have veterinary products, we have medical devices, we have cosmetics, we have consumer goods, nutraceuticals, and so on. So there's a lot of scope for literature monitoring on looking for active safety surveillance, like risks or adverse events information coming from the literature. And the literature is one of the sources of this growing pool of data that we can call it real world data, for example. So let's look a little bit at the regulatory guidance. So to give us a little bit of a kind of grounds on what we're doing. So good machine learning, which is another one to add to the GVP, GXP type of guidances, came out in October 2021. And it was a joint effort from the FDA, Health Canada, and MHRA. And they put a table with 10 good machine learning practice principles, but this is for medical devices. But we have incorporated this into building AI for pharmacovigilance because that was the closest that we could find to help us to develop software. So these are the 10 main guidances. And we have, I'm not going to go through them here because it's more about just kind of highlighting and illustrating it, but it is showing that all the steps, the 10 steps that we have taken to develop our AI models. And the Transcelerate, which is another important body that works with pharma companies, it has also come up with regulatory guidance and looked at how to do the validation for intelligent automation systems in pharmacovigilance, so insights of good manufacturing practices. And that was it came out in 2021. And ISPE, they use GUMP as a baseline framework. So there's quite a lot of information out there to help companies and software developers to be able to develop software that will be an AI that will be good for purpose, fit for purpose for companies to implement. And usually, the framework is very similar and involves in terms of how you prepare, how you plan, how you do your specification, reporting, verification, configuration, and all the supporting processes. But I think the most important thing out of this is that we have to work together. So pharmacovigilance has to work together with the developers and so on. So it's not one person working in silos. So it's more and more, it's bringing all the groups to work together and to be able to implement and do all the training models and things like that, because we are, within pharmacovigilance, we are the experts. And to validate what we have been doing for the past 3 years, 4 years, 3 years. There was a recent publication coming from Accelerate talking about case studies of AI-based static systems, and they did a survey from 2021 to 2022 Accelerate member companies interviews. And this is just one slide, one from their report. We have the link there for you to look at more detail. Is talking about how, and it's more for case processing, but it can be used in the literature monitoring as well. So it's looking at how intelligent automation can be implemented alongside humans, so the human in the loop. And that is something that we keep kind of pressing on that point, that we have developed a system, we have developed an artificial intelligence system to help companies to do the screening, but at the end of the day, the final decision on what is a new risk, what is a valid ICSR, what is an article that can be included for a PSUR, GSUR, that is a decision that the scientist, the physician, has to make within pharmacovigilance. So, and also there is a very important there's a lot of movement lately, obviously, because that is kind of the momentum is here. So there was also regulatory guidance, the EU AI Act, that just was voted very recently, the last few weeks. But this has been in the works for a very long time. So it's talking about how, the obligation of providers and users of high risk AI systems and other parties. So that kind of, we fall under that because we are responsible for patient safety, and we are developing software and AI that has, very high stakes on it, and we don't want to miss anything. We don't want to make any mistakes, and the AI shouldn't make any mistakes. Like we as humans, we shouldn't make any mistakes. So we have the main points here is that providers of a high risk AI system which is they must have a quality management system, which is very much like we already have for pharmacovigilance. So that is not different from what we have. If you have a PSMF, if you have a PV system, you will have a quality management system, and also take all the necessary corrective actions if the high-risk AI system is not in conformity with the requirements set out in other chapters of this document. So if you have some spare time and you want to read this whole regulatory guidance, the EU AI Act, you will see that the parts where they're talking about high risk, it very much kind of is in line with what we have for pharmacovigilance, because pharmacovigilance is already highly regulated. So we're still working in line with what the regulation is saying. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about what we have developed and why we have developed in this way, and also I would like, as questions coming forward, is what other types of data would people want to see, and what would be the main points of things that we haven't done and things that are important. And if we have missed anything, I'll be more than happy to hear comments, kind of giving us a little bit more guidance on what else we can do. So we started, the first pillar is any sort of unstructured real world data. We call it as a general word of real world data, but it could be anything. Could be conference abstracts, could be local journals, global databases, and so on. And then you can also have customer data. So you can have data that is it's your own data, like patient records, hospital data, insurance claims, you name it. It could be any source of unstructured data. Obviously, we have a database that is open source, as it's the same database for everyone. And then it will be a client exclusive data. If it's proprietary data, that doesn't get shared across. So, but let's concentrate here on the data that is open source, open access. And we have, in the last few years, been working really hard to be able to put as much data together as possible, coming from real world data, coming from local journals, coming from repositories of data, scientific data that are not included in the likes of the very large databases like PubMed or NBase and so on, EBSCO and so on. So we wanted to make sure that we are really including data that can be more heterogeneous, that it helps us when we also doing the labeling of the data for AI, that we including data that is not homogeneous in a way, so not to create bias to the AI models. So we included, the next slide, I will show what databases we have included. But the databases that we can include and the sources of data that we can include is endless. So it's as as little or as much as you wish. And then the second pillar is the safety surveillance enabled AI. So we have developed and trained in-house the models to look for possible risks, adverse events, look for patients, look for special situations, and all of this was created in line with the EMA guidance for medical literature monitoring. So we wanted to do something that is it's mimicking what a human is doing. So what the work of a human, what somebody is doing on a day-to-day when they sit down and they review a paper, what are the main points, what are the things that they're looking at? That's exactly what we wanted to do when we created when we developed the AI models, is to transcribe what a human being is thinking. So our thinking was, let's teach the models to act like we would to do the reviews. So we have done that for many years. We have a large volume of data that has been labeled, and that allows us to look for adverse events, risks, special situations in any drug, because the model is a generic model. So we can look for ICSRs for paracetamol, for COVID vaccine, for vitamin A, for a shampoo, for example. And even we can extrapolate it to the environment, because something that might be harming the environment, that is a possibility that we find that as well. So we have the first pillar is a large volume of data, and then we have our AI models. And the AI models, they can be used by itself, like uh, one individual model, or you can combine models to be able to screen, to help you to screen faster and to select the events that you want to look at. So, but it does have flexibility, so you can build in a way your query the way you want it to the answers that you need to have. And then the third pillar is the workflow. And the workflow is it's to help companies and users to be able to do their work faster and more efficiently, and also in a more compliant way, because all the decisions are documented, and then we can, and also it's tracking and it's organizing the data and is making, allowing you to make decisions. That workflow can also be used for creating new AI models. So if there's any AI models that we need to create, and even the ones that we have that we keep updating, we use the workflow for that as well. And just to say that our processes and our database is open API, so we can connect, we can ingest data, we can use our AI models can be used, deployed in other databases, and also the workflow can work all the way to it to be or to connect with signal detection platforms or safety databases and so on. So it was done in a way that is end-to-end integrated, and there's a flexibility as well to do what we need to do, depending on every company will have slightly different systems. So we wanted to make sure that companies would be able to use the platform like on its in the whole thing, or if they want parts of it, they would be able to use it too. And here I'm going to talk about the AI fine tune for pharmacovigilance. So what you see here is the big circle is all abstracts that match the product name, the drug class, or the mode of action, for example. So the way we do the search is we don't use all the keywords that is used in a normal database, because we believe that we need to expand the search to be able to find the relevant articles that we need. And the concept of doing searches on Biologit MLM-AI is very different from the concept of doing a search in NBase or PubMed, for example, because the PubMed and NBase is based on M3 or mesh, and the expansions happen a bit out of your own control, depending on the words that you're using. So we start with a large volume of data, and then you can also choose what you want on that. So do you want you want global data, you want all your local data as well as your global, and then you start looking at this big, like it starts very large and can be scary, because many companies say, I don't want to see more, I want to see less, I want to start with a small volume. But you're starting with a high volume, but that does not mean that you need to review that high volume, because the next step is where you put in your AI, and the AI, it will look for suspected adverse events. And it will kind of reduce that at least by 50%. And then it will look for events that are explicit in the abstract or implicit, and that you will need to go and look at the full article to find the information. And then you can have another, like you can start combining models and looking for identifiable patients, case reports, case series, studies. I think there's a repetition there, studies or studies, patients, and so on. And we also look at special situations, animal, in vitro, and we can create specific models looking for specific content, for example, which can be adapted along the way. But you can see here just by this picture, without us showing any examples, that you're starting with a very high volume of articles, and you might end up with a very small volume of articles that you really need to review if you use the full automation, and if you use all the filters and the screening done by the AI models that we have created. Here is just a use case that I have presented before, but it's just to illustrate, to show that if we start, this is a COVID vaccine example, and it's from June 2021 to April 2022. And COVID vaccine, as everybody know, and we're during the COVID vaccine and the COVID, this is the highest volume of data that you could, like, it's a product with would have a very high volume because there was a lot of publications and the media on top of it. So when we looked for this period of time, we found nearly 10,000 hits, which is a lot for somebody to review manually and do the review. It would really take you a long time. And then we wanted to break it down and show you that there is a lot of articles, not only from PubMed, and here is open source, open access data. And um, we're very engaged with being able to bring to pharmaceutical companies and to anybody who wants access to our database, open source data, because we believe the scientific information should be available to anybody who wants to read those articles. So you're starting with PubMed, and you have about 5,000 and 5,500 articles that would have COVID vaccine as one of the vaccines included in the article. And then DOAJ and Crossref, which are other databases that are similar to PubMed, but they contain more articles coming from other sources that PubMed or other proprietary databases don't include. And then we start looking, another feature of our platform is the deduplication. It's very important to have a deduplication model within the platform, because if you're looking at various different types of databases and putting them all together, there's no way that you're not going to get duplication, because the same journals that get published in PubMed or NBase, they get published in lots of different sources, and they might get published at different times. So they might take a week or a month, or we don't know how long it will take between getting published in one place or another. So our deduplication models are very important to reduce the amount of labor and work that people have to do the deduplication. And sometimes they don't come in the same search. It will come 1 week, 2, 3, 4, and the model will be able to find that. So if we look, so out of this nearly 10,000, how many did we have suspected safety events? So about 1,300. And how many were actually valid ICSRs of all, this whole large proportion of articles, so 400. So and this is, I think, is very important to see that you can start with 10,000, but you might only have to review and look at the number of articles that are the most relevant articles that is very likely to have safety reference in it. And very unique is the fact that we can find valid ICSRs from sources that is not indexed in journals, not in journals, sorry, databases, other larger databases, and you wouldn't find them if you weren't looking at open sources, for example. So there was 24, so it's 10% out of the valid ICSRs. 10% came from sources that wouldn't be indexed in larger databases. Oops, sorry. I think something got moved. I was going to give you some example. I was going to give you some examples of, I think it's the next one. So here is just kind of showing it in a similar fashion in a pie, the total number of hits and what are the unique ICSRs that you can find. And here are examples of where you can find these are journals that are not indexed in large databases, and the types of events that we found from the countries that we found that were present in DOAJ and Crossref, but they are unique. They wouldn't be found in other larger databases. We did a survey. We asked the question, and we asked all of you, what are the current challenges that you have when you do literature monitoring? And a lot of people, 24%, said high volume of citations. So a lot. So and that is a little bit counterintuitive when we say that we start with a high volume of data of information, and then we see this is a problem, and we also creating that problem because we are actually increasing that problem by giving you more citations, to presenting more citations. But the the presentation of all the citations, it doesn't mean you're going to have to review all of them, because you are going to automate and use the power of AI to screen for you. So that will be remediated. And then another one that got a lot of people saying that it is a problem is the screening decision tracking, 24%. And that's why we created the workflow to help companies to track, to help companies to work together in one platform where they can come in the morning and they will log into the platform, they will have the screen results, they will have the all the information coming from what they did day before, the month before, and so on. So it's all documented, it's all there, and it's a workflow that can be adapted, that can be used by more than one person, by different teams, and so on. So it does help to give you more autonomy on the work that you do, and also um, it will allow teams to work together. The second, 19%, is the local literature. And that's something that we have been thinking for a long time. That's why we started creating a global database that is truly global and including data coming from all countries, Africa, not countries, but continents, Africa, Asia, South America, Europe, US, and so on. So we want to really have the biggest database, the most complete database that covers the whole globe, that companies wouldn't have to go anywhere else looking for additional information. And all the work can be done in one place, in one single place, instead of having to be gathering data from lots of different sources. And the duplicate detection is important, and it becomes more and more and more important as you have lots of different sources of data coming in, because the data obviously can be duplicated and things can be published at different times in different journals, in different databases. And the cost, because the cost is only going to go up if there's more data coming through, and if companies are going to be charging per hits or charging per valid ICSRs. I don't know how they're doing that, but companies will have the more articles that they find. So it's nearly counterintuitive that they say we don't want to find more articles because that is going to cost us more money. But within safety, we are pharmacovigilance professionals. We want to find everything that is relevant. We really are keen to find any new safety information from the literature, and the cost shouldn't be an issue, but obviously it is, it's the business. But we want to be able to help companies to reduce that cost by allowing them to look through a high volume of data, but without increasing the cost, because the review itself is mostly automated, and the reviewers will be focusing on the information that is the most relevant information for them. Oops, I think this gone the wrong way. Sorry. Okay, so now I hope you have some questions for us.